Hello and welcome. My name is Carron Little and I'm the organizer of Out of Sight. And I would like to welcome you all into the room today to have a conversation with Beau Coleman, Beate Linne, Yvette Teeuwen and Surya Tüchler about the new works that they created last Friday, October 1st. And I'm going to start by just saying that Out of Sight is situated on the ancestral homelands of the Council of Three Fires, the Adwa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi nations. I am currently residing on the ancestral homelands of the Celtic peoples. And, in acknowledging that, I also acknowledge the colonialism that has been inflicted on my ancestors by the English in the 16th century, banning our language and our cultural customs, but also how the Scots have actually participated in colonial activity and continued the violence of colonialism. Out of Sight as an organization is particularly committed to having dialogues about that which we don't want to talk about. The things that are invisible, that are the gray areas, those that are out of sight. And so I have it's a great pleasure to be with all of these artists in the room today. And I would like to start the roundtable conversation by asking each of you to introduce your work, yourselves, and your practice. Who would like to? Shall I call out Beau Coleman? Do you want to start us off?
Yvette. So my name's Beau Coleman. I'm from Canada, and I'm also British, and I live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, as well as Winnipeg, Canada. And I'm a multidisciplinary artist who has, over the last about 20 years, has really moved into performance art, but I also do installation and video and theater as well. And over the last several years, I've been working with ideas of loss and grief. And so later I'll speak about how this piece relates to that.
Beate Linne. All right.
Oh, yeah. Who's gonna go?
Yeah, okay, I can continue. Yeah, my name is Beate Linne. I'm a German-based artist, and I'm doing performance since about 15 years, also installation and video. Yeah, my practice, I have been traveled a lot the last years, and I'm happy to make this experience through art. It's really something that forces me also to develop my art. I'm not sure, is the sound really okay? Yeah, because I hear something. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yvette.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Yvette Teeuwen. I'm from the Netherlands. I live in The Hague, where I also studied at the Royal Academy. And after the academy, I started making situation works, which were actually big works in public spaces with public passing by. And by doing like little things, they would get become the artwork. And I would really try to get art and public together. And they became the performance, but I didn't perform myself. And after these works, In 2008, I started my own performances. And now in the Corona year, I'm more and more into the public space. And specifically, I like the area in between where public space becomes nature or nature becomes public space. It's a mix up, and that's where I also did my last performance.
Thank you. Thank you. Surya, can I ask you to jump in?
Yeah. I'm Surya Tüchler. I'm based in Hamburg, Germany, and I'm doing live performances and video performances, and most of the time they are based off the sensual exploration of materials or places, and I like to work in nature or with nature. So this was especially in these COVID times. It was nice to be outside in the landscape and perform there in the air.
Thank you. And I'm going to start, I want to start off the conversation by talking about, I started the conversation on Friday, quoting a couple of lines from Rabbi Burns, where it says, "Nature made her what she is and never made another." And thinking about your performances that you presented on Friday, everybody created a piece that really kind of drew a connection or a relationship to nature or the environment. And, can you share about how you are thinking about nature, with a capital N, or the environment in relationship to the particular work that you shared on Friday? And I just encourage you to jump in, whoever would like to start.
I'll go. That's interesting because when you invited me to do this, I knew I wanted to do it in one of the parks, and I visited 2 parks, and then when I came to the second one, which is a place where I used to take my dog all the time, I just knew I wanted to do it there, and by the time that we actually did the live stream, a lot of leaves had fallen in just those couple of days beforehand. But when I look at the work now, I can sort of see the connection. So you have in the background the river with something moving, with the rocks of the cliff on the other side, and a bit of color in there. But then, so when autumn is dealing with time passing and life eventually being reborn, but at this point dying, and the dogs are very full of life, as is the river, and then I'm playing with these leaves that are going from green to brown. So the work would be very different if it was removed from that and put into another landscape. Let's say even spring. Like that's just going to be a whole different thing. So that contrast of the landscape and it being both death and life, I think is helping that piece. Yeah, so that's very interesting. So, and in terms of the quote, and Nair made another. When we do performance, it's only that time. So that nature, that surrounding is helping to make the performance, and it's really going to be the same. So like putting your foot in the river. Right?
Yeah, Beate, I would like to bring you in because you did your performance on this landscape that had perhaps Had it been just impacted by the recent fires that were happening in Italy? Or we can't hear you, sorry. Let me turn your mic on.
Okay, I was muted. Sorry. Yes, I have been in Italy, so I didn't know the surrounding. I had to find a place for the performance, and I was walking and going around, and then I found this very specific place. And of course, for me, it was a kind of very sad feeling, but at the same time, there was a kind of beauty, no? The colors, it was totally changed, you know, very different from the other parts just around. And and it made me very curious to do a site-specific work there. And also the material I found, the burned wood, is material I worked before, but not directly from the nature, like in this case. So it fitted very well to my work and to what I prefer, and was interesting to work there. The last performances I did, they were kind of similar in that sense that I think during the pandemic I felt more and more connected to the nature, because nature is something that you can trust in a way. It's there, and we have to take it how it is. No, we have no chance, and that's actually something that can be also a kind of freedom. Even nature can be also dangerous, and you never know what happens. But at the same time, we are a part of this, and I like to perform this and show this and feel it. It's for me very important. Yeah.
And can I just, in terms of the score of the performance that you presented on Friday, how are you thinking about perhaps these major themes of life and death that grew out of the piece, of the actions,
Mm-hmm. For me, it's the nature. So death is a part of life, and that's also in many performances I try to show this and try to find images for this, that death is nothing. It's a part of us, and it has also something beautiful. It's not something that we have to avoid or not accept. And I think the way we humans are going now is maybe the wrong way, no? To try to keep life, no, as something that is like an object or something that's not ourself. So for me, it's very important to accept that this is death and life belongs together. It's one. And when you are in nature, then you can feel it. And especially in this area where I have been, there were a lot of burned trees and very small parts of green, came out to see that nature is strong. Even a fire cannot destroy nature. And maybe we destroy ourselves, as human beings, but the nature will be not destroyed by us.
Yes, and I think this idea of rebirth, George Monbiot talks about the importance of dead trees being these ancient habitats and these homes to life, and I think this concept is something interesting to maybe Yvette. It would be great if you could actually talk, because those symbols for me came out in the performance. When the performance started up with these close-up symbols on the pole that you then replicated through the actions. and then your relationship with the forces of nature, you know, in the actual performance. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So in the beginning, you see the empty flag. So there's only the pole, and on the pole there's not the flag hanging, but there's just these symbols saying that there's no rescue team today, saying that if there's a yellow flag, then there's a dangerous sea. When there's a red flag, there's a very dangerous sea, you shouldn't go in. And I leave it a bit open because you don't know what is there today. There's no flag. And it started actually when in the summer I spent a lot of time there, and I saw there were a lot of moments that I was there that they came passing by with a car to take off the yellow flag, and I was always playing with the shadow of it. So there was one moment that I was like floating with the shadow flag becoming one, and they came and they just took it off, and I kept on taking pictures. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting that the flag is there, the flag is not there. Maybe I am the flag, and what is a flag? And maybe, it's about freedom, but it's also about a sign like be careful. And I really like this that they come together, freedom and danger, and maybe it's even opposite, because once I start doing a performance, when I'm intrigued by something, I discover a lot of times the opposite. So the danger is the freedom, and the freedom is the danger, or something. So I just felt like, okay, I'm just gonna go for it. I love this pole. I love the verticality, the form of the body of a person that's really standing on the earth, strong and being present. And from there start flowing and playing, and the elements. I work with the elements. And then the thing for me was to like invite myself by nature to get into a deeper natural state of being. So the primordial forces that are hidden in us and society suppresses, for me, art performing is really about getting that out and getting deeper and deeper in this part and showing that, but also inviting public to feel that more. And this time I became this flag, or whatever you see in it and experience it, but I was playing with that. And then I go into the sea and I invite myself to connect to the wildness and the danger of this sea, but not in the sense that it's really dangerous, but the sense that I'm expressing or connecting with this deeper danger, in the sense that it's a power. We're so afraid of the power in ourselves. So it has multiple layers, but maybe that's something I can say about it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Come back to some of those ideas, but I think that's a nice segue into Surya's work, that you're connecting with nature in a deep way. And in the performance on Friday, this was situated in the garden of your home, so it's taken out of the more riskier places where you've performed in public space. So how, in terms of like, what was your feeling after the performance? Can you speak to that kind of rooted groundedness? How did you feel after, going into that deep connection with your home garden? Did it change its space for you? Or let me unmute to you. Sorry.
So I am doing the performance with my I went with the hands really deep in the earth, and also one time maybe there was earth in my mouth, and this was really the taste of the earth was in my mouth, and after the performance, and also the earth in my hand, and the mixture of the wet artificial color and then the earth. So this was like, okay, now I'm a unit. So now because before I was the artificial color, it was artificial, and then and I wanted to have this contrast from my body. And then I went in the nature and in the earth, and I felt like, okay, I'm part of it. I'm not the nature, but I'm one part of it. And I felt really, really comfortable, and it was really, really cold, but I couldn't feel the coldness. And it was like, okay, I can stay there and sleep in the in the fawn. It was really comfortable.
So it created this warmth for you, and really kind of thinking about this connection. I'd like to ask everybody to, I'm always fascinated how public performances function, how they create surprises for ourselves as artists while we're making a work, and also how that unexpected encounter functions in relation to others. Some of you were in public space where there were publics that might be impacted by a surprise encounter. But I wanted to start, I don't know if maybe Beau, you could start us off in thinking about this kind of, and that goes back to what Yvette was saying with this risk and the freedom and the danger. How were you, but in terms of the surprise, can you talk about how that maybe impacted the public that were watching the performance that day?
It's interesting because in order to go to this dog park, you come down a hill, and then you have to obviously park in the big parking lot. But you go across a field for the section that I was in. So they wouldn't even see me until they got to the end of that field, because I was just slightly below, partway down towards the water. So definitely it would have been very unexpected as they were coming up. And I wasn't quite sure what the reaction was going to be. Were there going to be a few people that were there that were like, "What are you doing? You shouldn't be doing this," type of interaction. And I was surprised that there wasn't actually. I'll speak later about what happened just prior to, as I was headed towards doing the performance. But I'll speak about that later. But so I was expecting a bit of especially parents telling their kids, stay away from her, stay away, in a very cautious way, that she's doing something very strange and we don't go near that. I live in a very conservative area, so that's why I was expecting that. People are great when they know that it's a festival, but if they don't know, they're very, very cautious. And instead, what happened is that the people that did kind of do that to some extent were doing it for a very good reason. They were concerned because it was being filmed, and they didn't want their child, interfering with the filming. So that was an unexpected encounter to me, because I didn't end up having that encounter, which was very nice. But I think what was interesting is the people that stayed for a while and watched, and of course, they're walking their dog and they're going about their business, which is great. But there were a few people that actually sat down and watched, and in some cases watched the whole thing, which was about twice as long as what was live streamed. And one man in particular who had never really gone to an art gallery or done anything like that, and he came up afterwards to say, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why you were there, but I just had to sit down and watch it. And then he said, and I just couldn't get up. I had to wait till the very, very end till we were done the last weeks. And then he said, my mind kind of went in and out. And I'm like, that's fantastic. Like, that's great. So we both had that unexpected encounter. And then, of course, that lovely conversation at the end.
What has, while you were doing your performance, and anybody can jump in and, you know, respond to this, what did you have a surprise that occurred for yourself? Did you have as part of the work that you would like to share? Of course, because some surprises are private. Yvette.
Shall I? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The thing is, when I know I'm going to do a performance and I know which place and I have a sensitivity with it, or it gets me triggered, then I get this sort of basic structure idea. So, like I know I was going to work with the pole, and I knew I was going to go into the water, but I didn't know exactly how and what. So I leave a lot open to my intuition and impulses and spontaneity. So I thought I would dive into the shadow of the pole, walk till the end, then be the flag and go up into the sea. But the thing was that I was already lucky that there was a sun that day, because the whole week in Holland it was raining. So I was really, really lucky. And there was wind, so it was perfect. But when I was halfway, I saw that the sun stopped and there was no shadow anymore. So I couldn't go to the end. And that was actually very nice for myself, because these moments makes you very intense in the moment. You really have to. You already connected, but you have to connect even more to do what's suitable that moment. So then I decided to already put up the yellow part and become the thing there. But there was also a moment afterwards I couldn't see anymore. So I also had to change the costume to be able to, when the sun did come back, to do arrive at the end. So when I look back now, I see I made 3 faces. So for me, it's very interesting that there's always a surprise element, and it always learns you a lot. For me, I always feel that my work is a bit further than me. So when I look back at it, I see again like, oh wow, oh there's another layer and another layer. So for now, for me, seeing back that I had 3 stopping points makes it more interesting. So I'm very happy that the sun gave me a timeout and that I really had to stand there and be the pole, because that moment I really experienced with the hands up being a pole. And I had another deeper experience of being a vertical that's just standing there and doing nothing. And I think when years ago I would have maybe like panicked, like, oh shit, oh what do I do now? So I like these I like these surprises. Yeah. There were more, but this is just one that came up in my head.
Yeah, the thing is that you don't have the nature under control, no? When you are in outside in public space, and when I entered the space, I noticed that the farmers were there and they started to cut the branches of the trees. So it was very, very loud. I couldn't start my performance. And I had chosen a special time because of the light, and it was an hour before the sunset. So they didn't stop, and I started to become really nervous because without I couldn't record because of the sound. I needed also the sound of my performance. But happily, just before it would have been too late, they left. But this is something you cannot control. So, and especially when you want to do a live stream. I mean, in that case, I did this recording of the performance, but then it's sometimes really tricky. So I don't know what I would have done in the case of live streaming. Would have been a big problem.
Well, something to work with. It would have been interesting to hear that sound.
Yes, it would have changed the performance totally. Yes, very much. And of course, you have to be very flexible. In that case, I think I I would not have react directly and change my performance, because I really had an idea. But if this happens somehow in public space, you do performance and audience people, they interact in a way, we have to be flexible and react. Don't know before if this will happen or not, but it happened. But it's interesting. It's interesting. So it's challenging ourselves to be more open, and that's also something, yeah, interesting.
You said that you had a plan.
Mm-hmm.
There were moments in the performance where, you know, it felt like you didn't know what you were going to do. Like that, was that the case, or do you follow quite a strict plan when you create performances?
I have ideas. I have my material, and but I don't test it before, or I just know, okay, I have, for example, these plans, and I will do something with that somewhere around this place, or so it's like that. So there are kind of stations, but in the moment, it's more spontaneous how I deal with the material. That's not planned before. But sometimes it depends on the performance. Sometimes I really have a plan. Sometimes everything is open. So it changes from performance to performance.
Surya, did you have any unexpected encounters in your... Oops, let me turn you on.
So I did a lot of testing with the technique before. And I did almost all testings with the camera in front of my chest, filming the grass. I did it always on the daytime, and it was really nice to see the grass. And then also I discovered slugs. One time, a lot of slugs, and the contrast of the grass and the earth, and this was my exploration. But it was in daytime, and then in the night it was like, oh, it's so dark, but there was light. But then the red color of my the finger paint, the hands they have, for me it was also like I have to think of these slugs I have seen before when I saw my hands in the grass. So this was a nice image for me, because in the beginning I was focused on seeing because of the camera, and then I was more focused on touching and with and sometimes with closed eyes. But
I think something that came out that a couple of you talked about was entering this unknown space and working in being flexible, and like the practice of making public performance and responding to sight is really about opening up the body to possibility, to the unknown, and to be more open. And I think, this is an aspect that especially has become more necessary in times of the pandemic, when people are going through different personal situations, and this need for greater flexibility and adaptability. I was thinking I've been thinking a lot about, ecologies, and we've been talking about your work in relation to the environment and nature. How do you think, your processes of working, and I'm particularly interested in like feminist discourses, and how do you situate your public performance practice, you know, as an artist and as a woman artist working in a public space? And, you know, are you trying to change the ethical paradigm in a way through the process of making and working in response? Beau.
I think for me it's about taking up space when it's done in public, and especially if it's unexpected. As we were going to set up and bringing things from the car to the site, myself and the person who was doing the video ran into this man who overheard our conversation. And Catherine was saying, "Oh, there's going to be a lot of interactivity," and she meant with dogs that I wanted. And he heard that there would be a lot of interactivity, and he stopped and in a very booming voice said, "Ladies, what kind of interactivity are you speaking?" And first of all, ladies, that doesn't win me over. It's used like that, and then, you know, if I really felt he's trying to control the space, this is his space. This is, you know, this. So when I was speaking earlier about expecting to run into that, especially with parents, I wasn't expecting to run into it as I'm crossing the field. And I forget exactly what we said. We didn't really answer him in many ways, and just kind of kept going. And he ended up continuing to walk in the other direction. But I really felt a bit of a threat. I did. In terms of that, you know, he needs to know how is this going to be used by these two women. And maybe that was
a little bit forward, Beau.
Yeah. Pardon?
Can you
move a bit forward that we can hear you a bit better?
Oh, sorry.
Otherwise, we miss too much.
Sure. Is okay. I don't know where to start now.
I'm sorry.
If you still heard any of that, did you hear any of that, or was it too low?
Yes, but you started to disappear at the end.
Yeah,
maybe talking about space and
well, just and I mentioned that it felt like a threat, and I was still determined. I'm going to take up this space, and you know, if you want to during the performance interrupt us, go ahead, because you're not going to be stopping me from doing this, and also, like, it's, you know, when you do a performance in public place, it's an offering as well, right? Like, it's not about, oh, I'm going to take up all this space, but you're also creating something different for people, and I want to keep that spirit in there. With that, I just wasn't expecting to be challenged just as I was just carrying something.
Yeah, so, and you know, I think this this need to take up public space, and especially at a time when, you know, a lot of people have gone indoors and have gone into isolation, it's actually created a big absence of pedestrian public in the public space. And there's a writer called Jane Jacob who wrote the Life and Death of American Cities, who talked a lot about how, you know, public spaces are safer when there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. And Beate, you have a long, you know, decades of practice working in public space. How do you see that, you know, Beau talked about the need to bring joy and wonder to the public space. How are you thinking about these engagements? Do you see it as a personal interaction, or do you see it as a transformative for the random passerby public?
For me, it has both sides, because it's just natural when you appear as a woman that people see and interpret what they see in that direction. So we have to be aware that we appear as a person in a woman body, at least. So people will find their interpretation, even you maybe think in a different way, or you do it in a private way. For me, I, of course, with everything what we do in public space is political, you know. So it might have an impact, or I hope that there is, but it's not my first. The first point that I go and say, now I do the performance and I want to change something. You know, maybe it's a very long process. It's more to trigger the people to get out of the everyday situation. No, there is this surprise, and then people like, whoops, what's that? So life has these surprises, and sometimes the images or actions are maybe weird in a kind of, sometimes they are beautiful. So, but it's different from your everyday life, and this is for me the most important point. No, to stop the people, stop and make them think or feel. No, yes.
And, you know, in that stopping and in that surprise, there is a transformation that can occur, you know. And yes, Beau.
Well, just when earlier you said about that there's less people out. Where
Sorry, that
earlier you said that there's less people outside. This is Carron.
Yeah. Well, potentially in
where I live, it's actually a lot more people out in public space, a lot more. And with that, it feels, this is the part that helps support performance in public space right now, is it feels everybody's claiming some public space. That you know, that people are they're biking more, they're walking more, they're out with a friend, and I just happen to be doing performances. That's how I'm using it. So it's quite interesting. And I bet you even a few people, when they stumble across me on this performance or the last one that I did, which was on a bridge, actually enjoyed the fact that they stumbled on something really different, and that wouldn't have happened without the pandemic to some degree. Because everybody's out right now.
Yes, and again, that speaks to, you know, the difference in different local contexts. You know, I'm definitely speaking from, you know, a Chicago context or a Glasgow context, but, you know, everybody's, you know, responding to public spaces changing because of the pandemic in a local way. So I want to, it's 20 quarter to the hour. So I would love to open it up to the audience. So if you have a question for any of the artists, please type it in the chat for us. And I want to also, and while people are thinking and writing their questions, I want to ask this final question, which we've been really thinking a lot about. In a world filled with images and the consumption of an overabundance of social media, should we be abstaining as performance artists from online presentations of our work, or is there a necessity to participate in live streaming platforms? What is everybody's thoughts about this particular question? Would anybody like to jump in? Surya, do you have a thought on that?
Can you hear?
Yes, yes.
So for me, it's great to be connected with old people, old friends, and old other artists, and then new artists. So I got to know you during this time, Carron, and the others. And so this is great, and also to show something to others and to receive all this from all different countries and different places. So this is really a present. And on the other side, there's this sensuality which I'm using in my performance art, and the nature, which is a lot. It's also the senses of the audience, which is really important, and this is missing in the screen version. So I like both, but it's good to have the opportunity also to perform in outside and for audience. And also during this time, it was possible to be with small groups of audience in the real time and real place.
I was not in this case, but when the pandemic started and the project I was going to do got shifted, and I was invited to be part of the Lock Unlock project, and I was hesitant, certainly at first, to thinking, do I really want to move everything online? And I understand people's choices to not do that if they wish. But then I saw it as it's another tool to work with. It's a way to stretch one's practice and see what comes from that, and try out some ideas. And then through it, yes, it's been wonderful in terms of connecting with other artists very easily, and not necessarily ones that you would run into at that particular festival. They might be at another festival, but here we're able to just meet and see each other's work and talk about it. So it feels like it stretched something out. So I've really enjoyed it, and I think if I had seen it as, oh, I'm going to be performing online first, if that was my first thought, maybe that was different. I was thinking of it more as stretching the practice, and then through that performance came. But that's just on my end. Yeah, so I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, sorry we lost you, Beate, for a moment. I think that, like, I'd like to kind of pose that question to you, Yvette, in terms of, and somebody in the chat has also said, I'm so happy you have continued to do online live platform to connect people. And I agree with Surya, you know, I miss the energy of live gatherings and exchanges. And Ren JMG, we really, you know, we really empathize with your comment, because I think, you know, we're all missing the real connection with the live performance. But I'm wondering how shifting into this online platform event, it has altered your practice in any way over this time.
Sure. Yeah, for sure it has altered. And what I see is that at first I was really missing it. Then I was starting to follow more workshops from performers all around the world online. And then you got this really good group connection, but you also get more awareness about the screen, size, composition, what do I show, what don't I show. There's a different kind of accidents or surprises, what we just talked about, it's different because there's this limited view. So I think just right now I get more aware of the what do you choose or what don't you choose. So that made me make more video works, which I could also send out to more places in the world, which was really, really nice. So I was suddenly, it wasn't here anymore and it was more international. So that was a good development. But on the other hand, that's why I really, really liked today to participate, is that I saw something happening as a side effect that when you make a lot of video performances, you choose the best moments and you make it this sort of pearl, like this is not so important or this is not so. It's really good because it makes an interesting video work. But what I like now by doing this performance I did on the sea, really taking half an hour for it. I didn't know how long, but it became a half an hour. That I was really enjoying again that there's this moment where you're just standing or not knowing or diving into the not knowing and then some intensity comes up or and normally I would get maybe a bit more like judging like this is good or not and now I felt this freedom again to explore, so I was really happy. It feels like I make this trip from live performance to video, and now through what we did here on your invitation, it all comes together again. So that's where I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you've spoken about how you've moved your practice into public space. And I think, this is one of the conversations that we've really been having is the value of continuing to work in public space. And somebody is asking us, in the chat, if we're all vaccinated. And I think that's, we talked about freedom and liberation and taking risks earlier. And I personally am vaccinated, and it has allowed me a great deal of freedom over the last few months, where I have been able to travel, to connect and share artists who are in our platform to share their work. So thank you for joining us, Legend of Legends 17 today. And I want to, Beate, how is this transition for you been this time? And do you think it is relevant for us to be live streaming online with the overabundance? Is it contradictory to the work that we're trying to do?
In a kind, it is, but I see also new possibilities. I mean, one point is it's a fact that the world is changing. It's also a fact that people use internet and these platforms more than ever, and that it's a good possibility to reach people that we usually wouldn't reach. In public performance, it's maybe different, but in festival context, when we perform in galleries or museums, we have an audience. They are interested in art. We know this. We have a kind of safe place. So doing this streaming is something where we reach maybe other people, new people. And what I like very much now is that we try to learn these techniques. Especially as women, we are usually not the first. And I think is good, and I want to thank you for this, because I know this from myself. No, there is always somebody who supports, who helps, but now it's good to do it by myself, to go this way and have the possibility, even I maybe decide at some point I prefer to perform the real thing, no, not for the stream. But it's good to learn to know this, and also it's fantastic to meet you and to continue keep the contact and develop something together. No, we cannot turn the world back. No, it's just going forward. So maybe we also have to adapt in a way. So it has many different layers.
Yes, and I think that is a really great place to bring this conversation to a conclusion. You know, as we think about ecologies and how we work in connection with nature and how we move forward, we need to be adaptable. And I think, you know, also to say, and yeah, Wanapa, hello Wanapa, great to see you. It's been a while. And she says, love the performances, all the visuals and movements are so beautiful and memorable and make me feel more connected and appreciate more the beauty of our nature. Thank you all, and sending you all love. And you know, we're sending it back, Wanapa. So thank you for tuning in today. And I want to, there's, you know, for me it was very precious and very special, the new works that were created for Friday. So I really want to thank you all for that. And and you know, we don't, you know, there was a synchronicity that happened between the pieces without us even knowing it, and that was very special. And we're about to jump into a workshop called Sight Plus Time that is happening for the next 4 days. It's an intensive public performance workshop, and we'll be offering more workshops throughout this fall. We've got one coming up with Marilyn Arson in November, and then we have hopefully 2 more in the spring, and we're plotting the flow for next year. And I think, you know, it's really important that as artists, and particularly as women artists, that we do start to rethink the frame, the image, and the gaze. And this is something that I talked about in the live stream training that I provided at Flow Symposium this last year, and how we can start to change, you know, be more adaptable. And this kind of goes to what Beate was saying about just this shifting of perception and how we perceive the woman's body in public space. So I hope you can all continue to join us and continue to support public performance. You can make a donation on the Flow Symposium website to support artists' new work. And that goes straight into an artist fund, so we can create support artists to create new work on the platform. And do hope you can join us next week for the artist focus with Isa von Bonamola, which will be at 11:15 a.m. Chicago time and 6:15 p.m. European time. Thank you all for joining us today, and we wish you a lovely weekend. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you all for joining us. Bye-bye.